Hello, you are so welcome along to this episode of Live Wild. And I'm so lucky because in this episode I get to chat to Dave from the Happy Pear. The Happy Pear are a brand that are just bursting full of positivity. If you're vegetarian or vegan, or even if you're not and you just like to pursue a healthier lifestyle, you've more than likely come across these guys. I know I've got a couple of their cookbooks in my house and I absolutely love them. So chatting to Dave was such a thrill for me. And it was an eye-opener. He told me where the Happy Pear began. They grew up, super competitive, identical twins, love sports, love beer, thought they'd have a career in finance, but alas, fate had more in store for them, and the Happy Pear was born.
Unbeknownst to both of us, we both ended up kind of getting interested in food and where food comes from and how it's produced and the impact of food, and we both ended up giving up alcohol, which we never thought would happen.
And this happened separately when you were away from each other?
Well, we ended up, I think just before we left, we were, as we were saying, just before we were 21, we were 21, we were training to run a marathon, we had forgot to train, as you do. And a month before it, Steve had the idea of why don't we do a detox? So part of the detox was giving up alcohol. So we'd given up for a month. And we only drank just to meet girls. That was all you did. It was just a social lubricant. We went to all boys schools. So drinking, the purpose was to meet other, have the confidence to talk to a girl. And we gave up for this month. We did the marathon. We were feeling good. Steve said, why don't we do it till Christmas? We did it till Christmas. And then we both went away traveling straight after that. So
wow.
We thought we were only giving up for a month, but that's been 25 years now.
I came away from this chat feeling really inspired. So have a listen, and I hope that you feel inspired too. So Dave from the Happy Pear, thank you so much for joining me on the Live Wild podcast this morning. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Hilary. I'm delighted. I really am. Yeah. I love living well. Good,
because congratulations, you have a new family member, I heard as well. So that's wonderful news.
Yeah, we have. I have 3 daughters now. We just had a 3-month-old and I've got a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old. So
wow,
I'm blessed amongst women in my house.
Beautiful. Good for you.
Yeah.
Lucky man.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing. Congratulations. It's really wonderful. So yourself and your twin brother, Steve, started the Happy Pear, I think it was 2004, I read on your website. And it started with the cafe and the shop. Take us back to that time. Like, what made you guys go down the route of veggies and veganism? Because I suppose at that time as well, I mean, what would have you been? Probably your mid-20s, I imagine. Probably wasn't very popular amongst young men in their mid-20s, in Ireland especially.
Popular amongst men in their mid-20s. Yeah, that's very well said there. I think you've been underselling it there.
Yeah. So take us back to that time. Like, what made you guys go down that road together?
Yeah, so we grew up in Greystone, small little town, and Steve and myself are identical twins. So wow. Being an identical twin, you're hyper competitive. Like you've just been, because you've always been competing for everyone's love and attention, starting with your mother. And it's just innate as part of being an identical twin. Mm-hmm. So always it kind of forces you to be overachievers in a sense, because you're looking for people's love and attention. So we were always those, by the time we were 18, we were playing off scratch and golf, and we played semi-professional rugby, and we played baseball for Ireland, and we did modeling. We did all sorts of things that were like, only because you were competing and you were like it was coming from deep insecurities, I would guess. But we were absolute meat and 2 veg men, like particularly playing semi-professional rugby. Like it was all about meat. It was all about beer. It was all about the thought of vegan or vegetarian was like, no way, they're only skinny hippie. It's only for women. Like that would have been it, 25 years. Yeah. That would have been our perspective. And it wasn't until we finished college, we ended up studying business, both studied business separately. And at the end of college, Stephen, and being hyper competitive, we both studied business, and the subtext of business was, if you make loads of money, then you're going to be happy. And we kind of thought, okay, right, we're going to be stockbrokers. We're going to do, we'll go to London, we'll do finance, we'll do corporate finance, we'll make loads of money. And then when we're 30, we'll do what we want, Steve. That's the plan. And, and whatever way we ended up finishing college, and Steve turned to me one day, and we'd been sharing a bedroom all this time. And he turned to me and he says, I'm going away traveling by myself. You're not coming with me. And I'm not coming back till I'm happy. And so he went
Oh,
away.
bless. Oh my
Yeah, and
goodness.
we just turned 22. So Steve went off to Canada and I went off to South Africa to go be a golf pro, and
Wow.
unfolded our first journey of, you know, by ourselves, kind of going, well, what is life about? Where do I get meaning? What actually interests me outside of my peers, my friends, my family, my social upbringing? And unbeknownst to both of us, we both ended up kind of getting interest in food and where food comes from and how it's produced and the impact of food. And we both ended up giving up alcohol, which we never thought would happen.
And this happened separately when you were away from each other.
Well, we ended up, like, I think just before we left, we were, as we were saying, just before we were 21, we were 21, we were training to run a marathon. We'd forgot to train, as you do. And a month before it, Steve had the idea of, why don't we do a detox? So part of the detox was giving up alcohol. So we'd given up for a month. And we only drank just to meet girls. That was, you know, that was all you did. It was just a social lubricant. We went to all boys schools. So drinking, the purpose was to meet other, you know, have the confidence to talk to a girl. And we gave up for this month. We did the marathon. We were feeling good. Steve said, why don't we do it till Christmas? We did it at Christmas. And then we both went away traveling straight after that. So
wow.
We thought we were only giving up for a month, but that's been 25 years now.
Wow.
Because we realized you could meet girls when you were sober, and it was much more meaningful and you were much more authentically yourself. So that kind of made it more sustainable. And anyway, so we went away traveling, and we both ended up getting into food and farming and sustainability. And we ended up becoming plant-based and vegan. And yeah, that was a couple of years wandering around trying all sorts of things alternative. And then Steve one day calls me up. We're 23 years old, and he said, Dave, like, you know, you're the exact same. Like, I think he was in France, I was in Mexico. Wow. And he said, do you want to start a health food revolution?
Oh, and, that's a lofty goal, isn't it?
That was his language. And and it was like, oh, of course I do. And I had no idea he was thinking about a vegetable shop.
What did you think? What did you think when he said?
I thought, like, we're going to be, you know, doing, like, you know, going storming the door with placards and that kind of a stuff. But then he kind of said, well, do you want to start a vegetable shop? So we came home, we were 24 years old. Steve walked into the local veg shop and said, it was a Monday morning, and he just walked up to the lad who owned it and said, how are you? I was wondering if you'd sell me your veg shop. And we didn't have any money, like, so he was just literally seeing what life had on offer. And your man said, that's a pretty big question for a Monday morning. Why don't you come back to me later and we can sit in my van and we can have a chat about it? And they had a chat and whatever. And then it was 2004. So there was the Celtic Tiger. So we did a business plan on the back of an envelope, and we were managed to, not literally, but we did a small business plan, and we managed to get 100 grand from the bank. And we started with a vegetable shop and a little red van and a dream of getting people to eat more veg.
Wow. I mean, like, the genius of that is gorgeous, but also, you know, like we said, 2004, it wasn't a terribly popular thing for people to be doing. So how hard was it for you guys to convince the bank, firstly, to give you, you know, that kind of cash? And then secondly, how hard was it to convince a customer base, attract a customer base who maybe didn't have anything on offer at that point? Because I remember being in Dublin in 2006. I lived there at that point, and I used to go to Govinda's. I loved Govinda's. I think it's still going, actually. And yeah, shout out to Cafe Paradiso in Cork as well, who's done amazing work. But, like, you know, again, people ahead of their time, and you guys certainly were. Like, how hard was it to convince the bank and a customer base to come into you?
I can't even remember the bank and how that bit happened, but I do remember that there was that, because we were identical twins, we looked the same, we were good at sport, we were always kind of nice, friendly lads, and we lived in a small town, so everyone kind of knew us. You know, we were known as the Flynn twins. Oh, they're nice, lovely lads, or whatever. And then when we came back, and we had long hair now, and we were vegan, and we were starting a vegetable shop, and they didn't drink. And they swam in the sea. Them. Yeah. You know, there was definitely that perspective that, oh, these poor lads, they've really lost their way. They've really lost the plot. And obviously our friends were very much, like, growing up, were our rugby friends, which was pint drinking and going out and chasing women or men or whatever their preference was. And obviously we came back and that wasn't our agenda at all. So we didn't really have a lot in common with our previous friends. So it wasn't that we split up with them. It was just that we'd nothing in common. So we didn't spend time with them. So we had to start a whole new, it was almost like starting afresh. Like it really was. Yeah. And the wonderful thing, like when I look back, like I'd say the main reason we started Happy Pear was because we had changed so much and we wanted to create a support system to support the lifestyle we wanted to live.
Yeah.
So by starting this health food business, it attracted all sorts of other people that were interested in this lifestyle. So very quickly, we had a whole new friend group that was, had the same values and were interested in similar things. So it was, but it's certainly what made it easy was because we're identical twins. So there's always been two of us. And when there's two of you, no matter how much, begrudgery or whatever you're getting, you're very, like, certainly being an identical twin, we've always been very insular in a sense, like together we'll support one another. That, if someone, like in school, if someone had hit one of us, there'd be two fists coming back at the other person. Wow. Like, or if mom was, giving out to one of us, she'd have two of us,
to deal with.
Was completely wrong. It was just
her poor mother.
The relationship. Yeah.
That's so lovely to hear that, because that was my next question. Like, how important was your twin in your support structure? Like when you said trying to fit back into a community, that you kind of were like almost square pegs in round holes at that point, So that's really...
No, we very much were, like, and it's been like nearly 20 years now. Like we've just started our 20th year. Like,
wow, congratulations.
And when I look back, like it took a good while before the tide turned, and the perception within the town is like, oh geez, that's good stuff which they're doing. Wow. I get it now. I get it. Like it took a long time before people that would have been part of your old life kind of came back in and kind of were like, oh, okay, and not, like, it's just a natural thing. It wasn't because there was any badness in any sense. It's just the nature of when people change.
Absolutely. It's just a perception. And I suppose proof in the pudding for maybe the more traditional members of the community would be, it's a successful business. So once it's a successful business, they kind of sit up and pay attention and go, oh, okay, something's good here. Something's happening because it's a successful business, So you guys went from the cafe and to the cookbooks. And I mean, there's so much more than that. But was it a natural progression? Did you find that maybe people were coming in wanting to be part of this lifestyle, knowing how beneficial it was, but not really knowing where to start? Like, did the cookbook become a natural progression after that?
It was more like, I guess, it started always with the ethos of we want to build a happier, healthier world and build community around. Like that was, and it sounds really twee saying it, but it was always about getting people to eat more veg and inspiring people to live a better life. So back from the very start, we used to go to local schools. We used to do talks in local schools. We used to go and do smoothie demos, like from the very start. Like I've got photos from 19 years ago of us with long hair and plaid pants and, top knots in doing smoothie demos in our local schools. And lots of those kids come work with us now and they go, I remember when you used to come do smoothie demos. So it started with that, and we started with a vegetable shop, and this is 2004, and we had obviously been traveling for quite a few years before that, and we wanted to start a juice bar. So we started a juice bar because there was lots of waste fruit and veg, and it's very easy to turn that into juice. And that was obviously something new. Like I think it was the first or second juice bar in Ireland. So it attracted tons of young people into the fold. And, it gave that idea, okay, well, if we want to change people's habits, we need to change with the times. We need to be relevant. We need to bring people into this and make it attractive. So the juice bar was the first one. And then after that, we opened up a cafe and restaurant beside it. And that was we never labeled it as vegetarian or vegan. It was just like tasty, healthy food. Like it was never like people come in and, can I have the chicken curry? And they wouldn't realize that it said chickpea on the count, or it'd say you'd have shepherdless pie and they just read, I'll have the shepherd's pie or the lasagna, and people wouldn't really notice. And particularly when they're ordering a soup, like people wouldn't notice that it's vegetarian or vegan if it's just good food. And I guess little by little you're realizing you're looking for ways of how you can, extend out that mission. And we'd been approached a few times by publishers about doing a book, and we'd always sat down with the contracts and was like, oh my God, this is a nightmare. No, we can't, I can't handle this. And then it wasn't until Penguin approached us, it must be 8 or 9 years ago. And we went into their office and they were overlooking Stephen's Green, and we sitting having nice cups of tea with our fingers out and nice biscuits, and it felt like, oh, these are nice people. Writing with Penguin. I remember reading Penguin. That it was like, oh, sure, yeah, we'd love to. You know, it went beyond the contract, because I think that was our barrier, because there's all these little things that you can and can't do and whatever. And we ended up writing a cookbook, and it was interesting, because that first cookbook, like it wasn't like now there's loads of vegetarian and vegan cookbooks and plant-based cookbooks, but in Ireland certainly there wasn't, that market hadn't been tapped at all. And so Penguin were taking a punt on us. They said, well, if you've got a TV show, you'll usually sell about 6,000 books. We didn't have a TV show, and ours was a vegetarian book. So they said, well, we're going to take a punt on you anyway. We're going to print 6,000 copies, and you sell them in your shop over the next 5 years or whatever. So, you know, it over time they'll sell. And the book came out anyway. It was a small little yellow book. And within the first 6 weeks, I think those 6,000 copies had sold. And within 3 months, it was the best-selling cookbook in Ireland. And then it was the best-selling cookbook the next year as well. So it kind of hit a moment in time that it was like, I guess people were ready for something different. And I guess we were very, like, because it was so mission orientated, we were very, like, we really were vocal about inspiring people to eat more veg. And so media and TV and radio and all that was very natural, because if there wasn't social media or media, we would have been standing up in the town square preaching about the benefits of vegetables. With your bells. Like that's really what I fit. Like we've both always felt very moved to really try to inspire people, and obviously the spoken word is an easy way to do it.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I have one of your cookbooks here.
It's a good one.
It's very well worn. The binding is probably broken in it. I was looking through it last night, and I found a recipe for beans, different types of beans, and I was like, how have I not done that? I've never met a bean or a lentil that I don't like. So I think that'll be a recipe for this weekend. I'm going to check out the beans.
Very good.
How do you keep? I suppose. There's so many books now as well. How do you keep food exciting? Like what, I know there's always a different angle on things, but for you personally, how do you keep food exciting?
I guess there's an infinite, like, because we've worked in food for 20 years and you kind of over time, like say the first 5 cookbooks that we did, like we're writing a 7 cookbook now, but the first 5, cauliflower didn't feature at all. Like I hated cauliflower, like it didn't feature at all. And then suddenly you realize that maybe I was wrong. Like we had a Turkish chef who started with us, and she started she cooked it in a fundamentally different way that we were used to. Like we grew up with cauliflower and cheese, and cauliflower was insipid and it was just bland, this white anemic food. It was like, I do not like cauliflower. It's wrong. It's not good. It's not part, and we never featured it. And then you realize, oh my God, like there's a million different ways you can cook cauliflower, like roasting it and braising it and charring it. And it just brings out such a different flavor profile. And then you realize that, well, if I was wrong with cauliflower, like it almost seems like even 20 years in the food business, you still find so many different ingredients and methods and means of cooking things that it feels like it's a non-stop journey. Like there's just an infinite capacity, and even like we've got recently very into fermenting and just all the capacities within that world of minimizing food waste, of making homemade probiotics, of like age-old processes of preserving food, but enhancing flavor, enhancing nutrient profiles by such a simple methodology. And there's a million different ways within that lactic acid fermentation, which you can do to transform your food,
Wow. And transform your gut in the process as well.
Yeah. And it unlock flavor.
Wow. It's like, I mean, it is the science in itself, really. What's your go-to dish for yourself? I'm sure loads of people want to know that because you've got so many dishes in the restaurant and in the cookbooks, but what's your personal go-to dish?
Well, like, I guess there's the personal me. And like, when we're asked that question of, what would be your death row meal or whatever, like I always say, or what would be your favorite meal, or what's the favorite meal you've ever had? Like, and people expect you to say, we went to Noma and we had this real fancy dinner or whatever it is. But like, my favorite meal is always like, when I think of it, it's like me and Steve in some random market somewhere in the world where it's morning time. So there's that potential, that energy in the day. The sun is low, the steam coming off the ground. It's a market. And we go around this market, like this fruit market, and we find fresh, white, nectarines, there's black mission figs, there's watermelon, there's olives, there's bread. And we sit on a curb and we watch the day unfold, and you watch the hustle and bustle of a market. And as you're eating, you're seeing something else. You get back up and oh my God, I found like the most amazing mangoes. And you sit and it's literally at the side of the street. You're enjoying nature's bounty and you're watching this show unfold. And that is my perfect meal.
Wow. Gorgeous. You've painted a lovely picture there. And when you talk about nature's bounty as well, how important is that for people to realize, about the potential of fresh food and about the potential of what's out there, not just in what's in the supermarkets, but what can be grown around you in your gardens, in your local communities. For me, that's a massive potential that I think a lot of people haven't tapped into. Like, I'm really into growing veggies. I'm still harvesting my carrots, would you believe? It's December. Woo-hoo! I planted them when did they go down? I think it was June. I'm still harvesting my potatoes. So I have my Christmas dinner lined up.
Very impressive.
Yeah, I love it. And it's just all out in the garden, And I kind of refined it over the last couple of years. I was growing a bit of everything. And then, I was finding there wasn't enough of everything, really.
Staples.
So I just grew, because I've got 2 small kids. So I was like, right, potatoes, carrots, that's what we're going to do this year. That's it. Bit of lettuce. We've got courgettes in another place as well. But like, what would you say to people that maybe want to start down that track of growing food, or the potential of natural food, or even the potential of organic over non-organic food? I had this wonderful conversation in season 1 with this, you may know him, Fergal Smith from Moy Hill Farms in the west of Ireland, and he's doing incredible work around regenerative food and regenerative farming practices. Because his whole thing is that the soil has been so overprocessed; it's pretty much dead soil. Like, there's not a lot of nutrients coming through on that. What are your thoughts on that? And what are your thoughts on maybe, people trying to start growing food but not knowing where to start? I know they're 2 very different questions wrapped into one, but I trust you can handle it, Dave.
Well, I think I definitely start with just saying nowadays that, like, we live in an obesogenic environment, and that's a fancy word for saying that it's so much easier to make the unhealthy choice than the healthy choice. Like, humans inherently, we're lazy. We are the product of our environment. If someone lives in a place where people eat healthy, the probability is you're going to eat healthy. Whereas if you live in a house with people that just eat pizzas and burgers and chips and drink loads of beer, the probability is that you'll end up following course, because we're social creatures. So it's being aware that nowadays, like in Ireland, in the Western cultures, most industrial West cultures, at least 50% of the calories people eat are ultra processed foods. Wow. So it's being aware that, like, we and I see with my children, like, this just eat, like my elder 2 kids are 13 and 10, and they're the products of the current culture, which is so much processed foods. Like, I remember Halloween, we used to go trick-or-treating, and we get mostly monkey nuts. You get clementines, oranges, you might get a few different sweets. Whereas my kids will go trick-or-treating now, and they'll get like literally like 5 kilos worth of chocolate and junk. And it's like, and in lots of houses, they don't even ding on the doorbell. There's just a bucket outside with chocolate, like, and the people come out and fill it up every half hour or whatever, because it's so cheap, and it's just the nature of capitalism and the environment which we created. So it's being aware, first and foremost, for any listening, like, if anyone's sick or unhealthy or overweight, it's probably not your fault. It's just, we live in a food culture nowadays, which really, it's so much easier to make the unhealthy choice than the healthy choice. So that's the very first thing to say. And then the second thing is to say, like, most of us, when you look at the longest living people on the planet, so if you look at the blue zones, where there's the 5 areas in the planet where there's the most amount of centenarians. So and researchers went in, fronted by Dan Buettner, to find out, like, why do these people live such long, happy lives? And obviously food was one of the factors. And they found out that their 95% plus of what they eat is whole plant foods. So as in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, nuts and seeds. So real kind of normal foods, fruit, veg, beans, legumes, nuts and seeds. And then you look at the modern Irish diet, English diet, European diet, American diet, like, it's the global processed Western diet. About, as I said, more than 50% is ultra processed. About 35 to 40% or more is animal-based food. So your meat, your dairy, your chicken, your eggs. And then typically around 10% is whole plant food. So we've kind of inverted it. The longest living people are 95% whole plant foods. And most of us in the West are 5 to 10% whole plant food. So it's really just to be aware that you need to be a bit intentional. Most of us have about 5 or 6 dishes which we can make. We eat the same breakfast most days. We have ham and cheese sandwiches or whatever we have for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Dinner, we can make spaghetti bolognese and a pasta carbonara, and Friday night's chicken curry, and Saturday night is pizza or whatever. And we tend to be so habitual with our food choices. But if you do want to become healthier, and food is a huge component to it, you need to be a bit more intentional about making these changes. And you have to go, okay, like, it's going to take me a month at least to ingrain small little habits. So it's maybe starting with one meal and go, okay, those Happy Pear lads, they said that if I eat more veg, I might feel happier, I might feel better. So maybe it's starting with one meal and going, okay, I'm going to start with a 5-minute chickpea curry that literally, it's inexpensive, it's easy to make, and most people like it. It's got millions of views on YouTube. And it's starting with one thing and then building from there.
And it's interesting to note as well. I mean, you talked about just there saying, it's cheap, it's easy to make. It's a lot cheaper than eating the traditional meat-based diet as well. Now, I do a mix. I was vegan for a while. I did actually find it hard to maintain. And I think that was because of probably my social circle. I was going to family members' houses or whoever else. And when the meat was taken away and the dairy was taken away, it's like I was eating a piece of bread. And for me, that wasn't healthy, So it was that and a combination of factors, trying to feed small children and a bunch of stuff. And so what would be your thoughts on, okay, I know now it has become a massive market. What are your thoughts on the vegan food that you're finding in supermarkets now that are packaged? Because I have very mixed feelings about that stuff. Hey, if you're enjoying this episode and you'd like to show your support, if you like, you can buy us a coffee using the Buy Me a Coffee app or online at buymeacoffee.com/livewildpodcast, or just click the link in our show notes, it will take you there. Alternatively, you can also donate crypto to the show using the BitDonate app or at bitdonate.com and search for Live Wild, or just follow the link in the show notes. Either or both those donations really help us make the best show possible. And as always, you can like, subscribe, and share the show with your mates or on social media. Thank you so much for your help.
Yeah, so there's a huge distinction between vegan and, whole food. I can eat a vegan diet and I can eat vegan chocolate bars and vegan ice cream and vegan sausages and vegan burgers. I ain't going to be any healthier than, the standard diet. Like, obviously it's healthier for the animals and whatnot, but it's not, as a human at a biological level, it's not going to be any healthier. It's absolute ultra processed foods. Whereas what we're talking about is eating more whole plant foods. And it's genuinely, it's not about vegan or vegetarian. It's not like those religious terms turn people off. It's about eating more veg and eating more whole foods and feeling good. That's what it's about. And it's most people listening, like most of us, like in Ireland, in the UK, in all Western cultures, we don't eat enough fiber. Like 9 out of 10 of us statistically in most countries don't get enough fiber, and you only get fiber from plant foods. So you only get it from your fruit, your veg, your beans, your legumes, your nuts and seeds. So it's a direct reflection that we're not eating enough of these real foods in Western cultures. So,
If you were to make a government policy about that, what would it be? I mean, you did talk about storming the Dáil earlier, so so you have that rebel culture.
It probably has to kind of go back to, if you look at it like at a macroeconomic level, like where at government levels, we're footing up the costs of disease. We're footing up the cost of disease as people get older, and the cost is getting more and more on medical costs in terms of looking after people as they're sick. So if there was more taxation on processed foods and less, if it wasn't as readily available processed foods, people wouldn't be as obese, or as, there wouldn't be as much type 2 diabetes. There wouldn't be those complications that come with people being overweight. Like, that's kind of the root of a lot of it in terms of carrying more weight. It's more strain on your cardiovascular system. You're much more likely to catch other forms of diseases and whatnot. So I think probably, capitalism is wonderful and amazing. And it also, it doesn't necessarily factor in, in terms of food companies, the responsibility. And sometimes, it's about profit rather than the health of people, actually, most of the time. And I say that as a food business that has 80 food products, and ours are all focused on having a clean ingredient deck and trying to make it easier for people to eat better products.
How hard is it to try and get that clean ingredient for, through suppliers?
it's a constant challenge. Yeah, so we've got a food business where we make about 80 products. They're in about 1,000 stores in Ireland.
Wow.
And they range from kind of soups to mains to granolas to tomato sauces and, you know, everything in between. And it's challenging because it's the constant balance between what are your ideals, what do you know is the best one, and how does it fit within capitalism? How does it fit at this price point?
Yeah.
At what's available in terms of the packaging, and what will the consumer, what do they want? How does it fit with the palate? So it's a constant balancing act across these things. And it's really fun. Like, it's really fun because you've got to consistently tweak things according to ingredient cost or the sales price or the what's available or what can be produced with the, you know, the equipment and the, you know, the production line or whatnot.
I love that your approach is that it's fun rather than it's stressful. You know, rather than feeling the stress of it, that it's constantly changing, or that it's another thing thrown into the pot that you have to deal with. That's a really nice way to approach your business, is that it's fun.
Yeah, even I'd love to talk a tiny bit about that, because I think like stress is so rampant. Like, it's so rampant, and each year in my life it's more visible to see that the environment is more stressful for most people. Like, and I think stress, like so many people and everyone listening, and me included, like, there's a lot of time spent in our fight or flight nervous system where our nerves are being strained, they're frazzled. You've got so many text messages, WhatsApp, and you've got emails and direct messages and someone phoning you, and you've got to, you know, there's all these social pressures to be nice and to, you know, do all your wellness practices and to look a certain way and to, you know, oh, I need to go to Bali and I need to have a house by such and such a time and I need to have a family, and there's so many of these subconscious social pressures. So I think, I think like just stress is so rampant, and we've consciously always, from the start, we always talked about playing shop, you know, like the verbs, like a kid, like
gorgeous.
It's fun. It's like, it's fun. And when a child is playing, there's much more likelihood for them to be in flow. They're in the moment. Stress is not part of what they do. So I think our language definitely infers our experience. And it's very easy, as someone, like, we've got 100 people in our team. There's lots of complexities to our business. It would be very easy to be stressed all the time and get lost in the minutiae. But certainly, like, to last this long in the business and not have had burnouts and not, you know, not be in the grave at this stage, you have to consciously kind of go, well, it's not worth it. Like, you've got to manage yourself and go, well, you know, my own health and well-being is the most important thing, and it can't be at the expense of the business. I have to kind of, you know, choose to kind of see things as fun and know when to let balls drop and just do your best, because most of it you're not in control of.
Yeah, lovely. And I love that. I think it's really, really important, because there is so much overwhelm, particularly when it's such an independent business that has grown, you know, enormously. There's so, you know, there's quite a lot of pressures on you guys, but like you said, with people in general, stress is just the number one killer, because it's just such a hormone disruptor. And when the hormones are out, then everything else goes out with that. Health follows suit. And you talked a little bit about sea swimming. I know you guys are a big fan of sea swimming, and that it comes wrapped up in this kind of, you know, I don't want to use it as a business term, but it's like a lifestyle package almost that is quite synonymous with you guys. What do you think the benefits of that are?
Yeah. Oh, geez, there's so many of them. I think most of it is like, you feel better. Like, I think ultimately it's, you're less miserable, you're more likely to smile, and you're much more grateful. Like, I think that's at the very core, like, because we ended up swimming in the sea. We back about 10 years ago. Maybe it was earlier than that. It was when our first kids, like me and Steve both have 3 kids each. And when our first kids were really young, they'd wake in the middle of the night and we'd be out walking them around by the sea. And we had just got phones. And I remember Steve took a photo of the sunrise and he put it up on Twitter, and people really liked it. And, you know, it got engagement, the symbol of hope and a new dawn and whatnot. And so we used to go around with the kids in the morning and take a photo of the sunrise. And one day, like, and in summer times we'd swim a little bit, but we were never those lunatics that swam in winter. We weren't those type of people. And one day we were around there. I remember it was a September morning. It was a manky day, so one of those northerly winds that would skin you. And there was a lad getting out of the sea. So this lad's getting out of the sea, and he puts his foot up on the rock, like a nice masculine pose, and he shouts up at us, "You getting in, lads?" And we went to all boys schools. We're part of, we're a family of 4 boys, so we're very susceptible to macho challenges. So we kind of banged our chest and said, damn right, we're getting it. No, we didn't really, but we said, yeah, of course. And we went down, and we didn't have swim gear, but we got in our jocks and had a swim. And afterwards, your man said, he introduced himself, said his name was Neil, and he said, see you here at the same time tomorrow, lads. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure. And we met him the next day, and the next day there was another friend, Caroline. She ended up just being there, and she kind of joined us for a swim. The next day there was someone else there as well. There was someone else called Hugo who swam with us. There was 4 of us. And then the next day Steve brought tea. And by bringing tea, we had a reason to stand around. As adults, you almost need permission to stand around and talk. Yeah. And we talked about, oh, it's so cold and the water's lovely and oh my God, and the wind. And, you don't really talk about anything other than the kind of present moment experience. And that kind of kept going on day by day by day. And now it's been more than 10 years. And there's been, there's huge groups of people swimming in the sea every morning. And for us, it's been always at sunrise. So it's been not a particular time. It's always at sunrise. So at the moment it's winter. It's the depths of winter. It's about 8:20 at sunrise. And there's something very basic about swimming at sunrise and seeing the seasons change, seeing the tides change, seeing the moon change, seeing every day it's something different. And it's the benefit of doing it every day is that there's no decision need to be made. It's not like, oh, I don't feel like going today, or oh, it's a little wet today, I'm not going to go. So there's no decision, which makes it easier. You just get up and you go, and you're like a robot. You just do it. And 9 days out of 10, I don't want to do it. It's 9 days out of 10. I don't want to do it. I get down there and I'm like, I don't want to do this. Oh, why do we do this? This is a stupid habit. We're lunatic, blah, blah, blah.
The self-doubt and
it goes through that thing. Yeah. And then you get out and you're like, oh my God, that's so amazing. And I'm surprised. Like, I'm genuinely still surprised every day. And it's like, you do this every day, David. This makes you feel really good. And every day I'm like, oh my God, I forgot. The relationships you form with people who swim, because it's released all these serotonin and positive endorphins in your brain. The kind of friends you make there, you tend to fuse very deep, meaningful friendships, it kind of compounds and affects so many aspects of our lives. And nowadays, we socialize more in the morning than I do in the evening. It's like we swim in the morning. There's parties there for people's birthday. Every week there's someone's party or someone's birthday at 7 a.m. and there's sing songs and cakes. And it's become a tremendous anchor and cornerstone of our life, which just adds joy. It connects us to nature. There's community, and it's free.
Free. There you go. I mean, wow. It's such a joyful thing. I'm, very much into sea swimming as well. Although 2023, I was like, I can't do it. It was one of those ones. I went through that phase, but I always, have to talk myself into it. And at the end of it, I come out and I go, God, you never, ever, ever regret a swim. I've never regretted a swim, ever. Never. And it's that lovely, wonderful, like you said, connection to nature, there's some profound moments I've had in the water as well. In the water, turn around, the moon might be still out, or, the sun is rising. It's crisp, it's fresh. You're seeing things that you would never normally see, and you're seeing things that nobody else is seeing as well. It's just so beautiful and profound. And you talk about community as well, and how important that is, and how it's, social connections are so joyful, but also so important. How do you think food impacts community?
Well, food is it's one of the greatest pleasures of life. And it's the thing that unites us in so many different ways, whether no matter your culture, your religion, your creed, or even your language, when you share food with someone, you immediately, it just brings people together. So there's something very much food really does bring us together nowadays, where loneliness is rampant. It really is and social media has huge pluses, but it's, the digital age which we live in, where we all spend a lot of time on our phones at the expense of, physical relationships and investing in them. And there's so much more, as we said, with stress and with just the way current culture is. It's, we don't tend to prioritize the things like the relationships which are most important. And when you look at, there was a great book I read years ago, it was the top 5 regrets of the dying. And it was this palliative care nurse who was, she had obviously been there as a lot of people died. and she wrote a book about the top 5 regrets of the dying. And none of them were, I wish I'd worked harder, I wish I had more money. It was always about, I wish I'd prioritized the relationships were the most important. I wish I'd made time to spend more time with my parents while they were still alive. I wish I had slowed down and smelled the roses. I wish I had given myself permission to be happy. You know, it was these basic things that kind of we forget about. So in terms of, and then even you look at the Harvard adult development study, which is an amazing one, which is one of the longest studies done on the effect of kind of relationship, effects of what leads to a good life. It's in its 4th generation of people. It's heading towards its 90th year. And they've been tracking people, you know, they started off with, it was 2 groups. It was Harvard graduates in 1930 something, Harvard graduates and inner city boys. It was all men at the start. And they tracked them throughout their life to find out what led to a really good life. And it's now, as I said, it's in the 4th generation, and there's obviously women involved, and it's been going on for a long time. And every year they meet the people, they'd interview them, they'd go through, they get them to fill out health surveys and whatnot. And it was all to determine over 90 years, like of this study, what leads to a good life. And they've had presidents of America, they've had billionaires, and they've had people that obviously had hard lives as well. And they found it's all down to the quality of your relationships. The quality of your relationships dictates, you know, how you deal with the ups and downs of life. Because there's, no matter who you are, there's always going to be ups and downs. There's going to be curveballs. There's going to be deaths. There's going to be losing jobs, or it's just part of life. And that having these relationships that you can rely on and turn to and go to lean on when you need to, or be there to support people, like this is the real glue of life. And I think current culture, in our competitive, capitalistic, always on culture, doesn't always make time for the relationship. So anyone listening, it's a reminder to, and I'm saying this to myself as much as anyone, to call your parents, to make time for these people who you say are your best friends, or these relationships that really fill your soul. Because you never know, like people, we ain't here forever, and we think we're going to live forever. We think our friends and our family are going to live forever. We think our parents will be around forever. No. But really, it's that perspective of, you know, living like you're going to die, because then you might slow down and prioritize the things that are really of importance.
It's so true. And it's, everything changes in the blink of an eye, you know, like, and like you said, to really cultivate those connections. Esther Perel actually talks about that really wonderfully. She's, I suppose, one of the world-renowned relationship experts, but she talks about that, you know, that your relationships dictate the quality of your life. Without that, you know, you don't have a whole lot else going on. I mean, you might have a lot of money in the bank, but...
Yeah, but even then, like, even I walk around Greystones where we live, there's this area called the Burnaby, where there's loads of big houses, and they all have big gates on them, and they're amazing big houses. But like, you know, on an aspect of kind of, if we were all told we had a week to live, like you'd want to be open, you'd want to meet people and be on the street. Yet we kind of, the hallmark of success is having your castle with the big gates, and you're isolated, you're alone in there by yourself. Whereas if you look at children just want to be around other kids, they want to play, they want to be in the playground. And ultimately, we all have an inner child in ourselves. And the more that we can be out there with other people, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, like obviously, like I'm an extrovert, I love being out with people, but my wife is an introvert. So she loves our cats, she sits with our cats, and she loves animals, and she loves these kind of things. But the more we can really prioritize relationships and human connection, I think it's going to compound, and the quality of our life will greatly be affected.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, we're coming to the end of it. So, you are one half of the happy pair. What is your secret to happiness? I think we touched on a lot of it just there, but
yeah,
if you can,
I would think it's ultimately down to one's relationship with themselves. So like, I think it all comes down to your relationship with yourself. And we live so much of our life on the external, you know, it's pleasing other people. It's, you know, it's planning our life and organizing our life and trying to mitigate away problems and stresses and trying to make people like us, whether it's in real person or on social media. And it's all in the external, yet one's experience happens on the internal. Everyone's experience happens in the internal. So the more that you can make peace with yourself and be okay with other people not liking you, be okay with the bits of yourself. Like as you get older, you might notice there's more bumps and lumps, and it mightn't look the way that you're, you know, when you look at people in a magazine, And the more acceptance, the more self-love, the more kindness and compassion you can have for yourself, the more likely you are to feel good. Because as I said, life has, you're not in control of nearly all of it.
Yeah.
So it's, and we have this illusion that, oh, and I've got to do this and I've got to do that and I've got to do that. And it's like, oh my God, I find in myself, the more that I can let go, the more that I can surrender, the more that I can be at ease and just marvel at the wonder of life, the more I enjoy it on a daily basis. But when I find I'm most stressed, I'm trying to control so many different things. I'm trying to think ahead and it doesn't make me feel good. So it's kind of realizing that in each moment, you know, there is that opportunity of going, hey, am I breathing? Am I here with presence? Like a good friend of ours died yesterday. And I'm kind of going, oh my God, like, you know, life really can be taken away from us at any stage. And it's like yesterday I got into the sea and I was like, and I was getting like, it was cold, it was wet, it was manky. And I was going like, if I was told I had a week to live, like these are the kind of things which I would love to do, like to be down there and feel so much, feel that cold wind, feel that driving rain in my face, feel the cold sea, because it makes you feel so alive. But when you think you're going to live forever, you know, you kind of go, oh, I just want to stay comfortable and I'm just going to watch another episode of Netflix and I'm not going to go see my mom. And I'm just, it's, you know, where it's, yeah, I've just gone on a rant there and pretty much just talked to myself about it.
Good, but no,
but there, yeah. But really, I think it comes down to our relationship with ourselves, and whether you're anyone listening to this is 20 or 30 or 50 or 60, whatever age you are, like your relationship with yourself and understanding what you like and what you don't like is what life is all about. And accepting the evolution of yourself, that, you know, you might think you're a certain way, but you're going to change all the time, and being acceptance of these changes. And even if other people won't accept them, like as you get older, people might think you're a certain way, but you change, we all change. And ultimately being nice and kind and gentle to yourself.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Okay, so at the end of every interview, I do a Live Wild quick fire round. Are you ready, Dave from the Happy Pear?
Raring to go. Raring to go.
All right. Okay. Do you believe in magic?
Absolutely.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
I carry magic rocks in my pocket, you know, little magic rocks. And it's not because, you know, it's purely for the crack. Like, oh, like someone saying they're really stressed and I'll go, oh, do you want to hold my magic rock? Oh, it's amazing. Like this is just, it'll just transform your day. Oh, and they literally hold my magic rock and it's like, it's purely for the crack and the fun. And sure, who knows? Yeah. You know,
who knows? Because it's got lovely positive energy flowing through it. And then that person picks it up, you know. Yeah. Who knows? What is your favorite vegetable and why? We know cauliflower isn't. But...
Oh, geez, vegetable. Oof. At the moment, I'd say it's aubergine or it's mushroom. Oh, they're the two which I'd go, or potato. Like it's really hard to beat a potato. Like it's just such a versatile vegetable that I find feeds my soul. It isn't the most healthiest vegetable, but it's like, it's just such a delicious vegetable. It's the ultimate comfort food.
It is. Oh, garlic roast potatoes. Oh, man.
There's a million different things you could do with them. And the same with mushrooms. Mushrooms are just a sponge for flavor, and aubergine is the same. Like people don't like aubergine because they think it's plasticky or rubbery. But when you cook an aubergine and it's gooey and it's charred and it just takes on so many deep umami flavors and it melts in your mouth, and you know, you feel like you've just died and gone to heaven.
Yeah, I agree with mushrooms. I make a mushroom lasagna and it's, gotta say it's good. I've got a couple of things I do well. Mushroom lasagna is one of them.
Okay, there we go.
What do you stand for?
Being kind to yourself for health and happiness and community.
Beautiful. If you were to distill yourself down to an essence, what would your essence be?
Essence like a perfume. Like what would my perfume be?
It could be anything. Someone once said cheese. I thought that was a wonderful answer.
Cheese. Well, I know like when I die and I get cremated, I want to be sprinkled on the sea, and we've got a 4-acre regenerative farm and I want to be sprinkled on that. So I want to be sprinkled on the farm and I want to be sprinkled in the sea. So I'd say my essence is nature, and my essence is the same as your essence, or is the same as everyone listening. And I think we think we're isolated and we're separate, yet we are fundamentally connected. Just like every leaf in a tree is part of the tree, all of our essence is the same. So be kind and nice to others, because ultimately you're being kind and nice to yourself.
Oh, hear. What's the wildest thing you've ever done?
God, jeez.
It is the Live Well podcast, so I must ask this question.
Wildest thing I've ever done. Oh, there's lots of things I wouldn't say here.
That's fine.
There's other things. Like, I guess there's those quintessential things of like both me and Steve are really, really scared of heights. Like 2 weeks ago, we were in Heathrow Airport and we're going up 3 floors and it's a glass elevator and we're both curled up in the corner. So we're like super, super scared of heights. We always have been.
Wow.
But like, we've both done skydiving, we've done bungee jumping, and those kind of things when you're unbelievably scared, like you're so perished and you jump out of a plane and you can still breathe is really fun. And I've never really liked snakes. And when you hold snakes and you have them wrapped around your neck, like you're really living. And those they don't sound wild in that sense, but
it is. If it's facing a fear, that's a real face of a very primal fear. So,
or maybe I'd say the wildest thing is starting a vegetable shop.
There you go.
I'd say
that was wild for the time.
Starting a vegetable shop with the idea of trying to change people's perception of health and well-being.
Wow, there you go. That was wild. And look where you are now, huh?
Sitting here on a bench in my kitchen.
Yeah. What is the one thing you do every day that helps you live wild and free?
Like, we talked about swimming in the sea, and I'm probably going to go back to that because at its core, like, we are nature, and most of us live in urban places, and there's something about the sea that just transforms you and really connects you and reminds you that you're just dust in the wind and don't take it too serious at all. It's all a game. Marvel at it, enjoy it, don't take, and it just reminds me that every day I'm like, I get in there and I'm tense and I've got to do this and I've got to do that and I got to get back to the school runs, and then I come out of the sea and like I just breathe again and I'm like, oh, it's all right, it's grand, life's got this sorted, it's all right, you know. And when I'm reminded of that, that really helps.
Amazing. So many words of wisdom. Thank you so much, Dave from the Happy Pear. I really, really, really appreciate our chat today.
Thank you, Hilary. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Great fun.
Good. I'm glad.
Thank you for being here. We hope you enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed making these episodes. Thank you, as always, to our amazing guests. A special thank you to Aoife McNamara, my co-producer extraordinaire from Imagine Media. Please like, share, subscribe, and rate us. It all really helps. And remember, this content is for education and entertainment purposes. In short, it's not gospel. I always say, take what resonates with you and leave the rest. Always question everything and do your own research.